Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to share the difference between a need and a want. Also, the 5 main ways that codependents are unable to meet their needs and wants, and then some questions you can ask yourself so you can begin doing so. So the first thing is, what's the difference between a need and a want? Well, needs are things that must be fulfilled in order for us to survive, all right? And I've identified 5 of them. Some people might have a certain one that's different, but these to me are the 5 main ones. Food, clothing, shelter, intimacy and connection. So this is the typical physical intimacy that we think about, but also non-sexual physical intimacy, intellectual intimacy, emotional intimacy, and spiritual intimacy. Studies show that if a child doesn't physically and emotionally connect to another human being, they will die. Infants need that. We as adults need it. It is a survival need for us to be in relationship with other people. The final need that we have is money, income. Now, yes, there are people that are survivalists and live, and they may, produce many of these needs on their own. But for the vast majority of us, if you don't have a career, if you're not making money, you can't feed yourself, clothe yourself, you can't provide yourself shelter. And so those are the 5 needs. We need those things to survive, all right? Now, wants are different. Wants are things that bring us joy. And there are 2 types of wants. Little wants, like, I don't know, maybe like a Snickers, or maybe like some certain health food drink. It costs 25, 50 cents, and it brings you a little bit of joy. That's a little want. Big wants are things like trips, or a house or a new car. Those are the things that bring us big joy, but they also cost a lot more. And that's what leads us in to the 5 main ways that codependents don't meet their needs and wants. The first main way is they will pursue their wants over their needs, all right? And the actual pursuit of that sacrifices their ability to meet their needs. They'll go on trips and won't pay their rent. You see this all the time. People have the Mercedes, they have the Corvette, they have the BMW, yet they live in squalor, okay? They're projecting an image. Now, why is that? Well, because of such deprivation in child, where their basic needs weren't met. Most of it was the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual connection. They were so deprived in that area, they didn't experience joy, because that's where real joy comes from, is in connection. And so there's such an abandonment and neglect hole in them. They're looking for any sense of feeling that picks them up. Well, a brand new car, sure, that's going to do it. It's short-termed, or a candy bar, or all these little things that we do. That's why they're pursuing it. And they are putting themselves in continued deprivation by pursuing their wants ahead of their needs, all right? Number 2, the second way they do this is they pursue meeting other people's needs and wants ahead of their own, all right? Now, this is the person who volunteers for the homeless, yet their house is in complete disarray. Or if a friend or church member gets sick or hurt, they make dinner and take care of them, yet their own family is starving and their kids aren't getting attention, all right? So they're always taking care of everything outside of themselves, or even, they may be sick and hurt, yet they're taking care of somebody else who's sick and hurt and ignoring their own health conditions, all right? Number 3, they work well below their capabilities, or they work in jobs that they aren't compatible with, that they don't even like. And this makes it impossible for them to have adequate clothing, adequate shelter. They're not meeting their need to be able to take care of themselves in this area. All right, number 4, because of the neglect and abandonment in childhood, they learn to fear intimacy. And so one of the main ways that they will try and engage in intimacy is by starting fights. They can't ask directly. And so whether they just withdraw from you, or out of nowhere they complain about something, you're like, we were getting along great. What just happened? They don't know how to directly ask for their intellectual, emotional, and spiritual connection needs. And so the only way they do it, because there was so much discord in childhood, is they create fights. That's their representation of connection. Well, we all know fights are disconnection. And so that's the sabotaging aspect that the codependent uses. And number 5, They don't seek medical care, but they demand that others do. And this leads me into the story part of this. This is Lou Gehrig, ALS. You know who Lou Gehrig is, the famous baseball player. Well, that's who the disease is named after. And Lou Gehrig was a baseball player who played over 2,100 games without missing, or maybe somewhere around that number, 2,100 games without missing any game. Well, he had something like 13 or 16 fractures in his hands during that period of time. Now, he had to hold the bat, catch a ball, throw it, and he had 13 to 16 fractures and never missed a game. But there's a story about how a rookie on the team got the flu, and he demanded that he not play. He took him home to his mother's house, and both he and his mother nursed him back to health. He gave him his own bed while he slept on the couch. See, that's what causes ALS and Lou Gehrig's disease, is the inability to care for us, and we give ourselves away. Studies have shown clinicians, without running a single test, just by asking questions of people coming in thinking they might have this disease or showing the characteristics, they can just ask them how, these questions, and they'll see repeatedly those that are doing everything for everybody else without ever running a test. Within 90 to 95%, they'll be accurate that this person has ALS just by those questions. Because the condition of ALS is the inability to care for ourselves, and we give everything to ourselves. Lou Gehrig was taught by his mother. He took care of his mother his whole life. You'll see obituaries for people with this. Doctors on their deathbed are still taking care of other patients. Well, do you know what ALS is? It's where the muscular system gives out. You can't support your body. Do you hear that? Can't support yourself. That's heartbreaking. They give so much, they can't give to themselves. And that's what causes the disease, okay? All right, now that leads into what this looks like in real life. I have a client who recently just came into my office, and this is heartbreaking. In her main bathroom, the one she uses all the time, that's central to everything she does, she ran out of toilet paper. And she couldn't get herself to walk to the closet and put a new roll on. Instead, for over a week, she would use the other bathrooms because they had toilet paper in them. She didn't feel she was worthy of changing, of meeting her basic need to take care of herself and change the toilet paper roll. That's how devastating this becomes. Something as simple as changing a toilet paper roll, somebody can't do for themselves. That's how we are left in this codependent dynamic. Here's a couple stories from my life. I starved myself, and here's why. I was young and reaching into the refrigerator to get some cottage cheese. And as soon as I grabbed it, my mom screamed at me, "No, no, 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 that's for the dogs." Freaked me out. I put it back. Now, what my mom meant was she used the cottage cheese to hide the dog's pills when they were sick. But because she never explained it to me, here's what I heard. If you eat, I don't love you. If you eat, you're in trouble. And that means I'm a bad kid. And oh, by the way, in this house, we feed the dogs before we feed the kids. Now, did my mother say any of that? No. But this is what I talk about, how we've all been through abusive parenting. Because no one taught my mother that needed further explanation and things to be left with, I starved myself for years. The resolution I came up with was, wait a minute, if I don't eat, mom loves me. If I don't eat, I'm above the dogs. So here I was playing professional hockey, literally living off of ding-dongs and a Coke. I wouldn't eat. People would say, let's get something to eat. And I always thought it was because I would say, oh, I hate eating, it bores me. That was the false defense mechanism I created to get my mother to love me. And that's how I sacrificed my basic need for nourishment for decades. I didn't even realize it till I got into codependence recovery, that I was out of reality as to why I didn't like food. All right. Second story, about once, joy. I had no joy in my childhood, didn't even know how to experience it. And a perfect story came to mind for this was I was playing hockey, and our team took a 3-week trip to Czechoslovakia, Sweden, and Finland. And on the days off or in between games, do all this sightseeing. Well, I have this stack of pictures that everyone else on the team took of the sightseeing they did, and all these team pictures, and I'm the only one missing. That 3 weeks, when everyone's doing that, I would stay on the bus. I didn't go look at any of it. I had no sense of joy. I didn't know how to meet my need for joy, my want. I left that bus twice in that 2 weeks. Once I walked across the street, I think it was Finland. They had a museum where all their former leaders, they had their military outfits. And I just remember staring at one, glass encased, and there was a bullet hole. He'd been assassinated. That was the one excursion I did, which was walking 20 feet out of the bus, across the street. And the only other thing I did was Sweden. They had this big town square, and I kind of walked around and got something to eat. That was it. I had no ability to experience joy. That's very common for people who struggle with this. And that's why it's imperative we learn to pursue our needs and wants. So here are the questions I encourage you to ask yourself. 1, am I meeting my needs and wants? And if not, what plan can I put in place to begin doing it? Question number 2, make a list of all the ways you're meeting everybody else's needs and wants, and begin doing that for yourself. Now, you'll know you're doing it right if you feel guilty, if you feel shame, if you feel selfish, and that the world revolves around you. That means you've probably moved into moderation. All right? So I'm encouraging you, feel selfish, feel arrogant, feel guilt, feel shame for how much you're doing for yourself, and you're probably, at the very best, you're probably being moderate. Okay? So that's a great exercise you can use to begin meeting your needs and wants. All right? Question number 3 is make a list of the little wants, little things that bring you joy, and put a plan in place to start meeting them, as long as they don't sacrifice your needs. Question number 4, make a list of your big ones, trips, cars, houses, whatever they are, and put a plan in place to start pursuing that joy, as long as they don't meet your basic survival needs. Okay? And finally, remember, I talk about the falsely empowered codependent. If you're unaware of that, go back and watch my video, the 2 codependent personality types. I'll put a link here for you so you can go watch that. What they need to do is they need to stop doing everything for themselves and learn to begin asking for help. Remember, they're anti-dependent, they're arrogant, grandiose, and so they hide behind a wall of superiority and perfectionism and won't include anyone else in their process. And so they need to learn to do the exact opposite. And so they'll know they're doing it right when they feel weak, vulnerable, whiny. If it's a man, it's like, I'm a wussy. If they feel very insecure and belittling, that they're just so weak, they've probably just moved a little bit towards moderation. That's how they should feel. All right? So there you go. I hope that helps you. If you think it'll help somebody else, please share it. Leave me your comments, as always. And please subscribe if this is the kind of content you'd like to get. And as I always say, enjoy the journey.